How do I stop my brother's dead girlfriend's mom, 55 years old female, from ruining my 26 years old female wedding if he, 23 years old male, brings his new girlfriend, 21 years old female? I'm 26 years old, and in just a year, I'll be getting married. That's important to keep in mind for later. But before I can think about my wedding, I have to reflect on what my family has been through in the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we suffered 2 unthinkable losses that have altered the course of our lives. It all began when my father, at 52, was diagnosed with terminal cancer after a grueling 2-year battle. We were devastated to learn that he had only 2 months left. My brother Zach, who was 21 at the time, was granted special leave from the military so that we could take one last family trip. We decided to go to our dad's favorite city, hoping to make a few more cherished memories before time ran out. The atmosphere was bittersweet, and we did our best to hold on to joy even though the shadow of what was coming loomed over us. On the second day of that trip, Zach received a phone call that shattered everything. His longtime on and off girlfriend, Ellie, had been sexually assaulted and brutally murdered just days after returning to school. The horror of this news, the weight of it, was unimaginable. In those following days, I was consumed with trying to support my brother, staying in touch with Ellie's grieving mother, Deb, and doing what I could to hold our own family together while we anticipated our father's passing. It was an agony I hope no one ever has to face. The pain was suffocating, and even now, words fail to express what we went through. Those who have been through it will understand. The rest can only imagine. Zach and Ellie were in a kind of chaotic, fiery love that few could understand. They were never truly mature enough to handle the intensity of their emotions. They fought, they broke up, they made up again and again, but even in their breakups, they were still inseparable in a way, still best friends. They were so young, and we all held on to the hope that as they grew, they would find healthier ways to be with each other, in whatever form that might take. But no matter the complications, Zach always said it best when he spoke about Ellie's dad. We definitely caused chaos in each other's lives, but we loved each other. We hurried home so that Zach, my mom, and I could attend a vigil for Ellie at her school. My dad, too sick to attend, stayed behind. When Deb saw Zach, she immediately embraced him, clinging to him as she cried. It was a painful moment of shared grief, yet it felt as though, somehow, it wasn't enough. After the vigil, Zach had to return to base. The last time he saw our dad, they shared a brief, silent hug. 2 months later, I dropped out of my graduate program to help my mom care for my father during his final days. As we neared the inevitable, Deb, whose grief was still raw, stepped forward to help us in an unexpected way. She offered to organize my father's celebration of life so we could focus on his care. Deb is the type of person who knows everyone, so she was able to pull everything together quickly, and it was beautiful. We were grateful, but we also understood that her motives weren't entirely selfless. The timing of it all was uncanny. My dad's service was scheduled for the Friday after his death, and the following Saturday would have been Ellie's 21st birthday. Deb, still reeling from the loss of her daughter, had planned a big birthday memorial bash for Ellie. I'm not blind to the fact that Deb's involvement also ensured that Zach would be able to attend both events. We didn't care though. She'd done so much for us, and at that point, her reasons didn't matter. However, things began to get complicated as time passed. At Ellie's birthday party, Zach and some friends went to dinner with Ellie's father before arriving at Deb's event. Deb and Ellie's dad were estranged, their relationship only more strained by Ellie's death. When Zach and his friends arrived late, Deb made sure to make her displeasure known. After Zach returned to base, Deb continued to involve herself in his life in ways that became uncomfortable. She sent him random gifts and even got him a Sam's Club membership. Zach eventually had to ask her to stop because it was starting to feel invasive. Then, a little less than a year after Ellie's death, Zach started dating Rachel, a girl from his base. We all love Rachel. She's smart, kind, and grounded, exactly what Zach needed. She had lost her father young, so she truly understood what Zach was going through. They've been together for over a year now, and while their relationship may seem fast to some, military relationships often move quickly. They're already talking about getting married. But there's a problem. Zach is terrified of Deb finding out about Rachel. On one call with my mom, Deb made a comment along the lines of, "Don't think I don't know about that girl." While I understand that Deb wants to keep Ellie's memory alive, Zach is 22 now. He's allowed to move on, he's allowed to love someone else, and the fact that Deb wasn't respecting that was becoming a concern. My mom and Zach both had to have serious conversations with her about it.
A few months ago, I went to an event to honor Ellie's would-be 22nd birthday. It was a fundraiser in Ellie's name. Zach couldn't attend because he was still using up leave time from that fateful family vacation 2 years ago. Deb, however, mentioned twice how disappointed she was that Zach wasn't there.
Now, here we are, a year away from my wedding. After everything Deb has done for my family, I can't imagine not inviting her. She's been there for us in ways I'll never forget. She's helped plan my dad's celebration, she checks in on my mom regularly, and she always remembers Father's Day, my dad's birthday, and the day he passed. But Zach will be bringing Rachel to the wedding, and I'm terrified that Deb will make things awkward for them. I don't want her to say something that will make either of them uncomfortable, like reminding Zach of his absence from Ellie's fundraiser, or going on about how perfect he and Ellie were. I need advice on how to navigate this situation. How can I set boundaries that will protect my brother without causing conflict with Deb? To those of you who suggest not inviting her, please, I need advice on how to manage the relationship without cutting her off. If her behavior becomes problematic, I'll consider the necessary decisions, but right now I'm looking for guidance on how to handle these sensitive conversations. My brother comes first, but Deb has been more than just Ellie's mother. She's a family friend, and I want to be considerate of how my actions affect her too. Thank you to everyone who offers helpful suggestions. Update 1. Advice for indirect communication. The situation with Zach, Rachel, and Deb is, without a doubt, complicated and full of emotions. And navigating this delicate balance is going to require care, honesty, and a lot of sensitivity. The loss of Ellie and the upcoming wedding have created a space where grief, memories, and new beginnings are all colliding in a way that's hard to navigate for everyone involved. But the most important thing here is the well-being of everyone, especially Zach and Rachel, as they try to move forward in a healthy, loving relationship. It's clear that Zach has already been doing the difficult work of setting boundaries with Deb, which is commendable, but now the responsibility falls to you as the one planning your wedding, to ensure that boundaries are respected and that everyone feels valued and comfortable. In your shoes, the first thing I would do is have a conversation with Zach. It's critical that you talk openly with him about the uncomfortable situations that may arise during your wedding and the expectations you have for how things will unfold. Let him know that you fully support his relationship with Rachel and that you are happy that he has found someone who truly understands him. Be honest with him about your worries regarding Deb and her potential comments, especially considering the tension that's been building up around Rachel. Zach may feel caught in the middle of his family's emotions, but reinforcing that you are on his side and that he has your full support will make it easier for him to handle any tough situations that arise. Make sure he knows that you won't be able to step in and mediate during the wedding itself, as it's important that he handles any confrontations with Deb in a way that feels right to him, without making a scene or disrupting the day. Leave room for Zach to talk about how he feels, because it's likely that he already has his own concerns about Deb's behavior and is trying to set the tone for what will be acceptable. Next, it's important to address the seating arrangements. Deb should not be seated near Zach and Rachel, as this could create a situation where she feels emboldened to make comments or interfere in a way that makes them uncomfortable. At the same time, she shouldn't feel intentionally slighted or excluded. A middle ground would be to seat her in a way that isn't too far from them, but not in the immediate family section either. This ensures that she isn't positioned directly in front of them, where she might feel the need to approach them or start a conversation. The seating arrangements for the ceremony should also be clear. List only the last names on the RSVP and seating chart for the front 2 rows, which are typically reserved for immediate family and close friends. This helps prevent Deb from feeling like she can just slip in and take a spot in the front rows, where she might make things more awkward by talking to Zach or Rachel. To ensure that things stay smooth on the wedding day, inform your day of coordinator about the situation. Show her a picture of Deb so that she can help manage the flow and take Zach aside for an important task whenever she sees them talking. Though weddings are busy, it's crucial that the coordinator is aware of the dynamics at play to ensure that the event stays focused on the couple and not on any uncomfortable interactions. While these indirect measures can certainly help, I believe you should also have a direct conversation with Deb. I would suggest inviting her to tea or coffee at a quaint cafe where the environment is calm and inviting for a serious talk. This will give you an opportunity to express your gratitude for all she has done for your family. Let her know that her support, particularly during the most difficult times, has meant the world to you and your mother. Acknowledge that no words will ever be enough to convey your appreciation for her unwavering kindness. This will open the door for her to talk about how she's feeling, and it will also allow you to ease into the more difficult part of the conversation. Once she's had a chance to speak, gently transition into the issue at hand. Share your feelings about the wedding and the potential strain that seeing Zach's new girlfriend could cause for her. Explain that while you understand her grief and the love she had for Ellie, You are concerned that any negative comments about Rachel or their relationship would make the situation uncomfortable for everyone. Let her know that you want Rachel to feel welcomed and accepted at the wedding, and that the event should be about celebrating love and new beginnings, not about holding on to the past or lamenting what could have been. Tell Deb that you are worried she might still be mourning Ellie deeply, and you want to ensure that the day is not more painful for her than it needs to be. Give her space to process and respond. You don't want to pressure her, but you do need to know if she's emotionally prepared for what the wedding will entail, especially in the presence of so many friends and family members. If Deb expresses that she's struggling with the idea of attending, ask her if it might be best for her to sit this one out. Let her know that you would love for her to be there, but you completely understand if it feels too soon and too overwhelming for her to handle. This conversation needs to be gentle, as you don't want to push her away, but you also don't want her to feel like she has to attend just because she feels obligated. If she agrees to come, make sure she knows that you want no disappointments, and that you're confident she can be there without feeling the need to express any feelings of resentment or sadness that might negatively affect the atmosphere. Finally, if it seems that Deb is open to being a part of your day, I would suggest creating a new tradition with her that can help both of you cope with the grief and loss you've experienced together. Perhaps something like a special day each year that you, your mom, and Deb can spend together, or even participating in a charity event, like a 5K, in honor of Ellie. This could provide an outlet for both of you to channel your emotions in a healthy and positive way, while also continuing to honor Ellie's memory without letting it overshadow your new beginnings. I also want to express how deeply sorry I am that you've been navigating all of this with such heavy grief. Your happiest memories are running alongside such sorrow, losing both your father and the grief of seeing Zach move forward in his life. I didn't have my own father when I got married, so I walked myself down the aisle, and my husband met me halfway to walk the rest of the way. It was a symbolic moment for us, a representation that it was just the two of us now, making our own journey. I think it helped show that while there are losses that can never be replaced, there are still new chapters to embrace. Finally, I want to commend you for the beautiful way you've written about this experience. Your words have been both heartfelt and articulate. You are an incredible writer, and I hope you are able to finish your graduate studies and pursue your dreams. Update 2. There are no easy solutions when it comes to this situation, and it's becoming increasingly clear that keeping the peace and making everyone happy might not be possible. Sometimes, despite our best intentions, certain relationships and situations simply become too strained to remain intact, especially when the emotional stakes are so high. In this case, the tension around Deb and her involvement in your wedding is not just a matter of misplaced intentions, but something deeper. The loss she's experienced, while tragic and overwhelming, has led her to hold on to a past that is preventing her from truly seeing the present. This has put her in a place where her grief, though justified, is impacting the lives of those around her, particularly your brothers Zach and Rachel, who are trying to build a future together. It is understandable that Deb is struggling with Ellie's death. Losing a child is an unimaginable kind of pain, and it's clear that her grief is overwhelming. The loss of Ellie, someone who was so deeply woven into the fabric of your family's life, must feel unbearable at times. Deb's inability to move past that grief is part of why she might be holding on to the memory of Ellie in a way that's unhealthy for her and others around her. However, the truth remains, your brother Zach deserves to live his life fully, without the constant reminder of Ellie's absence overshadowing every aspect of it. He is at a point in his life where he's found someone who makes him happy, someone he sees a future with, and that deserves to be celebrated, not overshadowed by the sorrow that still lingers in Deb's heart. As much as Deb's pain is understandable, it is equally important that Zach is allowed to move forward, to experience love and joy without being constantly reminded of the loss Deb has endured. You, as his sister, have an obligation to protect him, to stand up for him, and to make sure that his journey is not continually hindered by the weight of someone else's grief. You are his advocate here, and it's your responsibility, not only as his sister, but also as the person hosting this event, to ensure that the atmosphere at your wedding is one of support, positivity, and love. Your wedding should be a celebration of life, of love, and of the new chapters that your family is writing, not a place where old wounds are constantly reopened. The reality is that Deb's behavior has already crossed boundaries that have made Zach and your mother uncomfortable. Both of them have had conversations with Deb about her behavior, and yet she continues to push the limits. This is where your role as the person organizing the wedding becomes crucial. It's your responsibility to ensure that this event remains focused on the couple, on your love, and on the new life that's beginning. If Deb cannot bring herself to put her grief aside for a few hours in order to celebrate your wedding, then it may be best for her to remain at home. This might sound harsh, but you need to be clear with her about the consequences if she cannot control herself. If she is unwilling to behave respectfully and put aside her personal feelings for the sake of the occasion, she needs to know that her actions could result in her being removed from the event. It will be difficult, but you need to sit down with Deb and have an honest, yet kind, conversation with her. Let her know how much you understand the depth of her grief, but also make it clear that your wedding is not the place for her to work through her unresolved feelings. You have to express that while you recognize her pain, Zach and Rachel deserve the space to celebrate their relationship without her grief getting in the way. Be firm but compassionate. Let her know that you care about her as a person, but that her inability to let go of the past is causing harm to your brother and to the event you've been planning for so long. Tell Deb that based on her past words and actions, you are concerned about how she will behave at your wedding, particularly when Zach and Rachel are there. This is not just about past comments, it's about her overall attitude and the way she has continued to behave despite previous discussions. If she cannot commit to being present at your wedding without letting her personal feelings about Zach moving on cloud her judgment, then she needs to stay at home. There is no room for disruption or negativity on this day. If Deb agrees to attend, but then makes inappropriate comments or tries to bring up her unresolved grief in front of guests, she will be asked to leave. You need to make it clear that you will be vigilant and that you will take action if necessary. It might seem harsh, but the well-being of your brother, his new relationship, and the atmosphere of your wedding must take precedence. As painful as it may be, this is the reality of the situation. You cannot let the wedding be overshadowed by unresolved grief. It's one thing to sympathize with Deb's pain, and it's another to allow that pain to dictate the happiness of others. This is your moment to be the strong, supportive sister that Zach needs, and to ensure that the day you've dreamed of is not marred by past sorrows. Update 3. My advice: you have 6 good months before you need to address this issue. While Zach and his girlfriend are currently building a life together and planning their future, life is still moving forward. People will fall in love again. Waiting another 6 months will give Deb more time to heal from the excruciating loss she has experienced. I understand that the situation feels urgent, especially with the upcoming wedding, but this is one of those cases where time can provide the space and distance needed for healing and reflection. When it comes to grief, it doesn't follow any set timeline, and even when we want it to, we can't rush the process. 6 months might seem like a long time to wait, but sometimes giving people the time they need to adjust is the kindest thing we can do, not just for them, but for everyone involved. Take Zach and his girlfriend, for example. Right now, they are in the early stages of a relationship where love and commitment are just beginning to take root. Their future is unfolding, and they are making plans for a life together. For Zach, it must be both exhilarating and daunting to begin this new chapter, especially considering the heaviness of the past few years. At the same time, it's important to recognize that while Zach is moving forward, Deb is still deeply caught in the pain of losing Ellie. That grief doesn't just fade away overnight, it lingers, sometimes in ways we can't understand unless we've walked through it ourselves. Deb's pain is raw, and it's perfectly understandable that she is still grieving in such an intense, overwhelming way. Ellie's death is not just a loss of a daughter, it's the loss of dreams and hopes that will never come to pass. A part of Deb's world was ripped away, and no amount of time or distance can easily make that hurt less. For her, seeing Zach move on, seeing him date Rachel, must feel like a sharp reminder of the future she'll never have with Ellie. But it's also important to acknowledge that grief has a way of holding us back, of trapping us in the past while the rest of the world moves forward. For Deb to see Zach and Rachel together, it may feel like a betrayal of Ellie's memory in some way, and it's that complex web of emotions that makes this situation so challenging. However, just as Zach is finding love again, so too must Deb learn to accept that life will move on, even in the face of loss. Zach deserves the chance to live his life, to have a future with someone who makes him happy, without the shadow of his sister's tragic death hovering over every new relationship. Deb needs time to heal, and it's crucial for her to understand that grief cannot hold Zach hostage indefinitely. But that doesn't mean she has to rush into acceptance immediately. The pain is still very fresh for her, and she may need more time to process everything. It is in those 6 months that she may find the space she needs to come to terms with her feelings, to understand that Zach's happiness doesn't erase Ellie's memory, but rather honors it in a way that allows him to continue his life in a healthy way. You, as Zach's sister, have the unique perspective of understanding both the importance of honoring the past and the necessity of moving forward. While Deb's grief is valid, so is Zach's desire to live a full and healthy life. In the next 6 months, you have the opportunity to allow both of them the time they need to heal and adjust, and to address the situation with the sensitivity it deserves. The more space Deb has to process her emotions, the better chance she has of finding peace with Zach's new relationship. But this time isn't just for Deb, it's also for Zach and Rachel. The more you can allow them the freedom to enjoy their relationship without the weight of Deb's unresolved grief hanging over them, the more likely it is that everyone will find a way to move forward in a way that honors Ellie without stifling new happiness. It's not an easy road, and waiting isn't always comfortable, but sometimes it's the right thing to do. You don't need to rush into any difficult conversations just yet. Let Deb have these next 6 months to process her grief. It's possible that after this time, she may feel differently, especially if she sees that Zach's happiness doesn't diminish Ellie's memory, but instead helps him move through his own grief. To provide some perspective, let me share a personal story. A similar situation unfolded when my sister-in-law passed away from cancer in her late 20s. She had been dating a man whom we all loved, and when she died, he was devastated. We all were. But eventually, he started dating again. At first, my mother-in-law was very upset by this, struggling to come to terms with the idea that her son-in-law could move on so quickly after her daughter's death. But with time and distance, she came to understand that he was not going to be alone forever. Over the years, he married and had 2 children. He still shows up at family events, including my mother-in-law's funeral. Even years after, he has continued to help organize a charity volleyball tournament in memory of my late sister-in-law. It was a journey, one that took time, but ultimately it was one of healing and acceptance. The story is not to diminish Deb's pain or to suggest that she will get over it quickly. It's to highlight that given time, people often find a way to accept new love and happiness without dishonoring what was lost. And so, I suggest waiting. Let the 6 months pass, allowing Deb the space she needs to process, and then gently approach her. She already knows in her heart that Zach will date and love someone else. Right now, her heart aches because that someone will never be her daughter, because of an act so horrific that it robbed her of the chance to see Ellie live a full life. I hope, for her sake, that they catch the person responsible for Ellie's death and imprison him forever. But that doesn't change the fact that life must continue. Zach's happiness is not a betrayal of Ellie's memory. Rather, it's a continuation of the love she and Zach shared, a love that cannot be extinguished by time or tragedy.